All right, and we are recording. Okay, guys, today we're going to go over intro to biochemistry, and we're going to do carbohydrates. I looked at the calendar, and we're actually 3 days ahead of schedule, which is a great place to be. It's better than being 3 days behind schedule. And that's good because when I made the calendar, I did not allot for us to watch a film, typically in maybe November. But since we are ahead of schedule, that might actually be able to happen. Okay, let's get to it. Today is going to be about biochemistry and carbohydrates. Let me talk a little louder so the microphone can hear me. All right. Okay, so how many of you have a family member that's a medical professional in some capacity, even a veterinarian? All right, so you should really give them some appreciation for the classes they had to take. And I'm going to get to that in a sec. But what we're going to start off with today is organic compounds. When you hear organic, you hear that word used a lot, like in the last 10 years. These tomatoes are organic. This OJ is organic. This milk is totally organic. Blah, 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 blah. But what this basically means is that it has carbon. Not only does it have carbon, but it also has the other, it may have the other 5 elements that are crucial for life. Now, the reason I asked if you know a medical professional in the family, they likely had to take a class in college called biochemistry and or organic chemistry. I took organic chemistry 1 and 2, and it was a nightmare. But it's kind of like one of those classes. If any of you have aspirations to be a medical professional, I've spoken with plenty in my life, and I asked them, have you ever had to use the stuff from organic chem? And they say, not really. It's one of those classes where you weed out the weak ones and the strong ones stick. So if you decide to choose that route in your professional career and you have to take organic chemistry, consider that like a test to see if you can get through it. I took organic chemistry 1 and 2, and I never used it. So it obviously does have stuff that's pertinent. I've actually shared a few things in my chem classes, but it's a tough class, and it's organic chem 1 and 2. We're not doing organic chem, so relax. What we will be doing is biochemistry, which is also a course in college. I did not take that. I took, what did I take? I think I took molecular chemistry, which is a little different, or molecular biology. That's what it was. So biochemistry is all about the chemistry of life. And when we look at the periodic table, it's not everything that's on the periodic table. It's less than 10%. And particularly the biochemical molecules that we're going to need to know are going to be carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. We call them macromolecules. Macromolecules are also called biomolecules. So if I only teach you macromolecules, and you somewhere on the test see biomolecules, you're like, what are those? Same thing. Now, is there anyone here that has to take microeconomics, like AP Micro? What does micro mean?
Small.
Small. So what's the opposite of micro?
Big.
And what would the prefix be for that?
Macro.
Bingo. There is a class called microeconomics, and there's macroeconomics. Macro is a prefix you'll be learning soon enough. It does mean large or big. So macromolecules are going to be the big, giant molecules, and they are made up of building blocks. Those building blocks are called monomers. What number is represented by the prefix mono? 1. Mono, e mono, one on one. So there are 4 macromolecules that you have to know. The first one we will be going over today, carbohydrates, which are sugars, and I'll delve into them more today. The monomers of carbohydrates begins with an M. It translates into 1 sugar. You want to take a swing at it? Freshman year bio? Yes. Mono what? Mono something. It's like the first week of freshman camp or bio. Monosaccharides. The monomers of a carbohydrate are called monosaccharides. It translates into 1 sugar. Mono means 1, saccharides means sugar. We'll talk about these today. The next one will be tomorrow. Lipids. There's several monomers for this, and so I'm going to give you both of them. It's a combination. The first one is going to be glycerol and 3 fatty acids. Tomorrow we'll do lipids, and you'll find that glycerol and 3 fatty acids together form triglycerides. Triglycerides are really not something you want to have a whole lot of in your bloodstream. If you were to go to a doctor and you got your blood work done, and they say, oh my gosh, your triglycerides are through the roof. What have you been eating? You're just like, cheese, ice cream, and milkshakes, man. Cheese, ice cream, and milkshakes. It's the 3 food groups. Triglycerides can cause a plethora of problems, some of which can be cardiovascular disease. You might have atherosclerosis, a lot of cholesterol. It causes your blood pressure to go up because your blood vessels are narrowing because they're just filled with so much junk. I once showed a video to my students several years ago where this man was getting his blood drawn, and the doctor could actually see the fat in his blood. And he asked him, did you recently eat something? He said, yeah, I just went to Wendy's and I had a Frosty and a cheeseburger. The doctor's like, yeah, I see it in your blood, like the actual triglycerides. So it's bad fat in your bloodstream. The other one for lipids is going to be a phosphate and 2 fatty acids. Do you recall what part of your cell is made up of a phosphate and 2 fatty acids? It's called a phospholipid. Yes. Your cell membrane, also called your plasma membrane. So some fat is good, some fat is bad. You have to have fat in your diet. You have to. But there's different categories of it, and also everything in moderation. Number 3, proteins. Proteins are also called peptides. Make sure you know that. Proteins and peptides are the same thing. The monomers to peptides are called amino acids. In nature, there are 20 amino acids, and they have very strange names like tryptophan, lysine, arginine, phenylalanine. Let me think if I can try to think of one more. Aspartic acid. So amino acids we'll get to on Friday. And then the 4th and final one is going to be nucleic acids. And their monomer is nucleotides. We'll get to these on Tuesday since there's no school on Monday. A very common mistake that students make is they think that amino acids are the monomers to nucleic acids. And obviously, it's an obvious mistake, and it's a comprehensible mistake. Don't make that mistake. Just because they both have the word acid doesn't mean that they're together. They really don't have anything to do with each other. So amino acids are the monomers or the building blocks of proteins, and nucleic acids are the macromolecule to nucleotides. Okay. Now, speaking of monomers, monomers are building blocks. A few weeks ago when I was in Riverview, I was stuck at a railroad crossing. I swear there was a train that had to have had 100 cars. It just went on forever, and it went like 2 miles an hour. So that train was made up of, it had to be at least 100 cars. Each car is a monomer. It's a building block. It's a unit. The entire train itself is like the macromolecule, which we call a polymer. And in this case, the polymer is the macromolecule. If this ceiling is a polymer, each individual tile is a monomer. If my brick wall here is a polymer, each individual brick is a monomer. Same thing with the floor. The whole floor is a polymer. Each individual tile is a monomer. So when we look at monomers, just think of one individual unit. This little circle here represents one unit. On one side, there's a hydrogen ion, and on the other side, there's a hydroxide ion. And I'll go over that in a moment. If you have not had chemistry, you have no idea what hydrogen and hydroxide is. It's okay. I'll break it down for you. So that's just one unit. A polymer is going to be multiple units bonded together. Okay, you guys do not need to draw this next part. This is just for me to convey an idea to you, okay? So let's say you're a little baby. Don't laugh at my baby. Babies have Michelin legs, right? No toes either, apparently. Little belly button. How do you go from this to that? Well, you have to grow and develop, and you need to have food in your diet. What is your body doing with the food that you eat when you're growing from an infant to an adult? It's taking up all the nutrients and the food, the vitamins, the minerals, the macromolecules that you consume, and building them up to be part of you. Your muscles get bigger. Your organs get bigger. Your brain gets bigger. Your skin stretches out. You guys, some of you may still be feeling those growing pains behind your knees, which means you're still getting taller. Some of you might be done growing, maybe. Well, this is a building up process. And we're going to talk about how one molecule builds up to this huge chain of monomers called a polymer. But also think of this. This baby has to be consuming food. So what if you're a cow and you get turned into a steak? That has to be broken down by the baby so the baby can grow itself. So this is a breaking down process where we have to eat food, and we have to break it down to its most basic units, which would be the monomers, the amino acids, the monosaccharides, the triglycerides, or not the triglycerides, the glycerol, the fatty acids, and even the nucleic acids. This is a breaking down process. We're going to go over that too. So let's go over the building up process first. This is called dehydration synthesis. And to help you out with your future Latin, D basically means to reverse, like decelerate, the opposite of accelerate. I'm going to decline, the opposite of incline. Hydration just means water, and syn, S-Y-N, means together. So in dehydration synthesis, what you're essentially doing is it is the removal of water to bond monomers and form a polymer. So essentially, it's the removal of water to build. Sometimes your brain likes to go towards watering a plant. If I water a plant, the plant gets bigger. That is not the case here. In this case, you remove water and the molecule gets bigger. Now, for those of you that have not taken chemistry before, let me go back up here. You see this, hydrogen and hydroxide. In chemistry, there are ions called hydrogen ions. It's a hydrogen atom with a positive 1 charge. And then you have a polyatomic ion called hydroxide, OH with a negative 1 charge. For those of you that had taken chemistry, do any of you recall what happens when a hydrogen and a hydroxide react with each other? And think about the law of conservation of mass. There's nothing being added to this. Anything that's on the left side is going to the right side. What do you get when you have H bonded with OH? You get H2O. 2 H's and an O, H2O. This is water. When we're talking about dehydration, you're taking that away. This equation can also go into reverse. H2O can break down into a hydrogen ion and a hydroxide ion. So, let's do a visual example. I have a molecule here, just a little monomer. I'm going to call this monomer 1. It has a hydrogen sticking out on one end and a hydroxide sticking out on the other. Over here, I have monomer number 2. I want to make these two form or bond together to form something bigger. I'm trying to get big and strong and grow up. I need these molecules to come together. So the first thing that you identify is that we have a hydroxide on the red one and a hydrogen on the blue one. As was just stated, when you have hydroxide and you have hydrogen, you have water. Make sure you see that hydrogen reacts with hydroxide to form water. So what we're going to do, check this out. We are going to remove water. It's gone. So now, these molecules are going to be able to bond with each other. So I'm going to try to draw this kind of like a comic strip for you. This is now a larger molecule. It's not necessarily a polymer, but it's on its way. You could do this over and over and over again and you could get a polymer that's thousands of these individual units long. This whole process is called dehydration synthesis. You removed water, which is the dehydration part, in order to build bigger, which is the synthesis part. Now, I want to break these two apart. That's going to bring me to my other term, hydrolysis. It literally means water splitting. You are going to use water to split it, to break it apart. And so, what I'm going to do here I'm going to bring this down. Erase this. I want to break these two apart. Let's say that you're that little baby eating the steak, which is a weird idea, but just play with it. This baby's going to eat food. When you guys eat food, you eat large molecules. Your digestive system's job is to break those large molecules down into very small molecules, because you literally are what you eat. And large molecules are too big to be absorbed by your body in your digestive system, specifically your intestines. Your intestines are going to take the smallest form of these foods, which are the monomers, and they're going to diffuse through your organ walls and into your bloodstream. It's going to go from your brain to your toes, everywhere. When you eat sugar, it goes everywhere. When you eat protein, fat, whatever, it goes everywhere. Well, you got to get it small enough to be absorbed. This right here is too big. Too big to be absorbed in the digestive system. So it has to be broken down. So what we do is we add a hydroxide and we add a hydrogen. The hydroxide is going to go here. The hydrogen is going to go there. And if we go to the next image, we're right back where we started. And we have two separate molecules. These molecules would be small enough to be absorbed by your digestive system and be able to circulate through your bloodstream. This is why we have a lot of various digestive enzymes. The whole job is to get them smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. All right. Any questions on the biomolecules, monomers, polymers, dehydration, synthesis, or hydrolysis? Hydrolysis is adding water to make it smaller. Dehydration synthesis is removing water to make it bigger. Okay. So let's go to the next one. The first macromolecule, and we'll do this. This is like the second part of today. Carbohydrates. Anybody just come from lunch? What were carbohydrates that were in your meal today? What did you have?
Grilled cheese.
Okay, bread.
Grapes.
Sugar, good.
A cookie.
Definitely sugar.
Chips.
Sugar.
And I think that's it.
So everything but the cheese really was carbohydrate. Yeah. Your bread, the fruits, obviously the dessert. What else?
The water. And that was it. Oh, I forgot.
Well, carbohydrates are sugars. And there's different classes of sugar, there's different types of sugar, and there's different sources of sugar. The elements that are used in carbohydrates, and by the way, while I'm thinking of it, because I'm about to give you a little chemistry insight, when we're sitting in this classroom in March and April and May, and you're getting ready for the AP Biology exam, which is a long way from now, but that day will come, you will have the hardest time remembering what you're doing right now. In Unit 1, first and second week of school. So don't let this just gloss over, because I assure you about 13% of your entire test is going to be on questions like, why is this a carbohydrate? And you would say, well, it's a carbohydrate because it only has carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And those are the only elements. Out of all the 6 elements that make up life, carbs only have 3 of them. Carbohydrates are also used for a short-term energy source. Some foods that actually have carbs, well, we have fruits and veggies. Bread, pasta, anything that's based on wheat or grain. Let's see. Milk has some sugar. Obviously, we have dessert foods. You can talk milkshakes, cookies, brownies. Um, if you're at all aware or try to be concerned of how much sugar you eat, I'm pretty sure that like a grown man needs like 32 grams of sugar a day, maybe a little more. Females need a little bit less. Things like cereal, one bowl of Frosted Cheerios is 22 grams of sugar. It's a lot. Yogurt has a lot. Can you tell me what food or drink product in our society is the creme de la creme of sugar source? Gatorade is a big one, and it's also soda. Sugar is unbelievably high in Gatorade, soda, ginger ale. If you look on the back, it'll say like a little bottle of ginger ale, quarter liter, will have more sugar than you need in a day. It'll say 110% of your daily value, just in that little bottle. Sugar is very addicting. Say we have soda, you got Gatorade. I used to drink Gatorade, like a gallon of it every day. And then I kind of wised up and realized, what the heck am I doing? Nowadays I get the Gatorade that says no sugar in it. Alcohol is a big one. Drinking beer is like drinking a glass of liquid bread. And carbs are fine if you burn them. But if you don't burn carbs, what do they get stored in your body as? Fat. Well, when people drink a lot, or they have a lot of dessert, or they eat a big pizza with all that dough and the pizza, they're not exactly going to go running a 5K, are they? They're just going to kind of sit there, just relax. And all that starts to build up inside them, and that's how you get those fat stores. Some of you might be student athletes, and before your game, like maybe 3 or 4 hours before your game, your coaches provide you with the meal, and I bet you there's bread and pasta. Why do you think they're doing that? They're trying to give you that little energy boost for your game. Yeah. Okay. So the first one we're going to do, the first category of carbohydrates is going to be monosaccharides. What does mono mean? Do you know what saccharide means? Sugar. One sugar. That's it. These are called simple sugars. The elements in a simple sugar, the carbon, the hydrogen, the oxygen, are in a 1, 2 is in TWO, 1 ratio. So carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen is in a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio. The formula for glucose, which I'll get to momentarily, is C6H12O6. That is a 1 to 1 ratio. The shape of sugars is called a hexose. What number is hex? 6. They're shaped like a hexagon. That's what most simple sugars appear as. Nearly every corner is a carbon atom. That's a pretty sorry hexagon, isn't it? Let me try again. That's a little better. That's basically it's called a carbon ring. Some carbon rings are called a pentose, which means they're 5 carbons and they look like a pentagon. Sugars are a hexose, which are 6 carbons. Hence the C6 part. Okay, and there are 3 types you'll need to know of simple sugars. The first one is likely the most famous, glucose, blood sugar. You have to have glucose in your diet. You have to have sugar. There's no getting around it. Glucose is very important for cellular respiration, which is the process of taking the food that we eat and turning it into energy for our cells. If you don't get sugar in your diet, then your body is going to be starved for its raw source of making energy, and you'll start to succumb to the laws of thermodynamics, where you're not getting enough energy in your system. Your systems are going to start to shut down because they don't have anything to run on. You're running out of fuel. Glucose is known for being very high energy. Number 2 is going to be fructose. Fructose is known for being very sweet. Foods like pineapple, high fructose corn syrup, they're very, very sweet tasting. And then the third one is going to be galactose, which is found in milk. All 3 of these are called isomers. Isomers are molecules that have the same parts but they're built differently. And because they're built differently, they have different functions. And I have a way to relate this to you. Okay, so I've got a little mini marker sword here. Green on top, orange in the middle, black on the bottom. Let's say this is glucose. I'm going to switch it around a little bit. Now, this is fructose. It is made up of the same 3 markers that glucose is, but now I have them in a different arrangement. This means that it's going to have a different characteristics. When these 3 are like this, it's very high energy. When it's like this, there's less energy, but it tastes a lot sweeter. And then if I put orange on the bottom, black on the top, green in the middle, now it's going to be galactose. So this is an example of what isomers are. They're made up of the same elements. They're just arranged in a different pattern. All of you are in this classroom. There's 28 of you. But if I were to put you over there and you back there and Hannah up here, they're still the same people in this room, but now it's rearranged in a way that might have a different dynamic. Okay. The next size is going to be disaccharides. This means double sugar. Di means double, saccharide means sugar. Disaccharides are simply 2 monosaccharides bonded together. Yeah, oh, let's see. Reagan, yes. By what process would 2 monosaccharides be able to come together to form a disaccharide? I'll give you an option. Hydrolysis or dehydration synthesis?
The dehydration.
What is it?
Dehydration synthesis.
What does dehydration mean?
Getting rid of water.
Correct. What does synthesis mean?
Come together.
Correct. Building up, coming together. Good. So 2 monosaccharides coming together is all done by dehydration synthesis. Okay. There are 3 here you'll need to know. The first one is called sucrose. I believe sucrose's formula, I might be mistaken with this, is C12H22O11. Its ratios are not 1 to 2 to 1. That's just the monosaccharides. Pretty sure that's the formula for this. This is known as table sugar. This is what you get from sugar cane. You know, they call that cane sugar. It's a big industry down in South Florida by the Everglades and Lake Okeechobee. This is a combination of glucose bonded with fructose. So if I can visualize this for you guys, I'm going to put a G in the middle for glucose. You know, here's fructose. How am I going to get these two to come together? What do you remove? You remove the hydroxide here. You remove the hydrogen there. Erase those. And they're basically going to bond together. And now, what do you call this whole molecule? What's the disaccharide made of glucose and fructose? Sucrose. That's right. We now have sucrose. All right. The next one is maltose. This is going to be a combination of glucose bonded to another glucose. Number 3 is going to be lactose. It's obviously found in milk. This is going to be glucose and galactose. Is anyone here lactose intolerant? About like one person per class. If you don't mind me asking, what is your ancestry? It's not allergic, it's just, here's what it is. So you guys don't need to write this. Here's a little breather. So here is a lactose molecule. I'll put a G for glucose, a GL for glucose, and a GA for galactose. In our digestive system, we have bacteria. In fact, you have 10 times the number of bacterial cells in your body than you have your own cells that make up your body. It's called your gut flora. And without them, you wouldn't be able to digest food. Well, when most of us drink milk or eat cheese or ice cream or yogurt or anything dairy, the bacteria in our guts have mutated. This is very weird. This is a mutation where they are capable of breaking that bond. But for you, your bacteria can't do that. Now, when a molecule is this size, it is too large to enter your digestive system or your bloodstream, stream. It gets to your intestines, it gets like your stomach and your intestines, and then the bacteria tries to break it down, but it can't. So if this can't be digested, sometimes you get a little queasy, you might throw up, you might get other explosive effects. But it's very odd that grown mammals like us drink milk as adults. You don't see that anywhere in nature. You don't see a big bull going to drink milk from the udders of a cow. You don't see a grown dog going to its mother to drink milk. That doesn't happen. It only happens in babies so they get their fat. But we as adults, not only do we drink milk as adults, but we drink it from another animal. The reason is mainly because our ancestors did this for a long time, over hundreds of years, and we eventually got used to it. Our bacteria adapted to it, and they mutated to be able to break these bonds. Some people just didn't get those mutations, or they weren't passed on. But another thing is, the reason I asked you for our ancestry is a lot of cultures in Asia, specifically India, are mostly lactose intolerant. Why would most of the people in India be lactose intolerant? Cows are considered sacred, so you don't eat cow meat, no steaks, and you don't drink milk. And so they never had the opportunity to adapt to breaking down lactose. So most Indians are lactose intolerant. It's a little example of human evolution right there, the ability to digest lactose. Okay, finally, the big ones, polysaccharides. These are the actual big old monomers, or excuse me, macromolecules is what I meant to say. Okay, we have about 7 minutes left, so I'm going to try to get through this. These are large chains composed of subunits which are the monomers. So you could have just a long chain like this, and it, guys, it could be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units long. Polysaccharide means many sugars. Now, polysaccharides, there's 5 of them that you'll need to know, 5 that we commonly discuss in biology. 2 are for storage and 3 are for structure. So for the storage, and this is storage of what? Storage of energy. The first one, I cannot explain why so many students forget this one. So devote a little extra brain power to this. It's called glycogen. And while I'm thinking of it, when you come in, make sure you turn your phones off because that pinging is really distracting. Glycogen is basically a chain of glucose molecules. Glucose after glucose after glucose after glucose after glucose after glucose, all bonded together. This is energy storage in animals. Well, where do we store it? Because we are animals. We store it in our liver and our muscles. So in the event that you guys are really hungry and there's no food available to you, your body is going to retrieve the glycogen that is stored in your muscles and in your liver and use that for metabolism, use that for food. So if you were stuck on a desert island and you had no food to eat, the first thing your body's going to go for is the glycogen in your muscles and your liver and use that for fuel. It's obviously going to make you a little thinner, make you a little skinnier, but you're still getting food. And once all that's gone, then you're in trouble. Now, the second one is called amylose, or you might commonly hear it known as starch. This is energy storage in plants. Plants typically store it in their roots. This is why food like potatoes and carrots are very starchy, because they have a tremendous amount of carbohydrates that are stored in them. Now, the other 3 are going to be for structure. The first one is cellulose. It is a bunch of glucose molecules bonded together in the cell walls of plants. If you've ever eaten corn before, and then you saw corn in your poop, it's because our body and the bodies of most animals cannot digest cellulose. It is very tough and very strong. There's really not a lot of nutrition in it, so animals like cows, they eat grass all day to try to get in enough nutrients from all the grass, because there's hardly any good stuff from grass. But speaking of cows, they also cannot digest cellulose. So what they do is they'll chew the grass, they'll swallow it, churn it in their stomach, barf it up again in their mouth, chew it again, and then swallow it again. It's called cud. That's how they're able to get the nutrients past the cellulose. Rabbits will eat grass, chew it up, swallow it, poop it out, and eat their poop because it's already been digested once. The next one is going to be called chitin, which is, and I didn't mean to write cells, that should just be cell, singular, cell walls of fungi and exoskeletons of arthropods, which are things like crustaceans, arachnids, insects. Miss Drumso was really dorky one time. I saw her put something up online. She was making stone crab, and she cut her finger on the shell of a crab. She goes, "Oh man, the chitin broke my skin. It cut me, the chitin." I go, "Really? What a dork." Chitin it's not pronounced chitin, it's chitin. It's found in the exoskeletons of insects, arachnids, and crustaceans, and it's also in the cell wall of fungi. And the last one is the tough name, peptidoglycan. Remember that. Give a little brain power towards that one. Cell wall of bacteria. All bacteria have a cell wall. Some cell walls are thin, some cell walls are thick. A lot of the antibiotics that we have break holes through the cell wall of bacteria to kill it. Okay, that is it for today. Next time we will do lipids.
And for spiders in our textbook.